Hey, y'all. As we talk about the Industrial Revolution, it is important to understand some of the key inventions that changed the way that people lived during the Industrial Revolution. To that end, I am about to teach you about 16 of them. And over the course of the next few days, we are going to have a classroom debate over which one is the most important. But before you can vote on that, you're going to need to know what each one is. If you guys were here in person, well, I'd be allowing you to pick which number we should go to next. You're not, and I had to record this days before that you're ever going to see it. So instead of kids picking, I have written a random number generator, and we will use that instead. So look at the center of the screen. Our first number is 12. So invention 12 is the sewing machine. Now, this is going to be a kind of a consistent theme here. We're going to have quite a few inventions that have to do with cloth or clothing because the Industrial Revolution was really about when people stopped just working to make food, like when everybody was a farmer and were able to get jobs doing something else. One of the first big industries that hired a lot of these people were places that made ready-made clothes. Before the Industrial Revolution, just about everybody wore clothes that their family had made for them. But with the advent of things like the sewing machine, where the needle would automatically sew the thread through the cloth, suddenly you could actually get a higher quality piece of clothing made for less money from a factory than it would cost someone in your family to do it by hand. The original sewing machine came in 1844 by Elias Howe and then Isaac Singer. There's still quite a lot of sewing machines with the Singer name on it. Came up with a significant improvement in 1851. Let's go back. All right, new random number. 9. Let's see what invention 9 is. The mechanical reaper. Okay, this was one of the ones that we had when we did our farming family activity. It used to be that in order to cut down the wheat from the field, well, you had to go around with a little hand sickle and slice, slice, slice with this mechanical reaper. As you can see in the picture, all you had to do was hitch up a horse or a donkey or something, and you could just pull this device all the way across your field, and it would cut all the wheat for you perfectly every time. Thank you, Cyrus McCormick, 1834. With this device, one farmer could do the work of several, meaning those other people didn't have to be farmers and they could get a job doing something else. Go back. New random number 10. Oh, here we go. 10. Pasteurization. Now, if you remember the name, it's easy to remember who invented pasteurization. It's a guy named Louis Pasteur in 1864. I have seen some studies that will say Louis Pasteur, who was not a medical doctor, may have saved more lives than nearly any actual doctor in all of history. Really, basically, pasteurization is the process of treating food so that it doesn't go bad. One of the most famous ones is for milk. It shows you that on the screen here. To pasteurize milk, you first heat it pretty hot without boiling it, and then you cool it down. That basically has the effect of killing the microbes in the milk that would cause it to go bad, and therefore the milk would stay fresh and good and drinkable for longer. But it's not just about milk. Practically every bit of food that we buy from the store, certainly anything that's been prepackaged, has been pasteurized in some way. Sometimes we do it with heat, sometimes we do it by adding certain preservatives. But in the modern world, we understand how to take food and keep it from going bad. Again, that makes it easier for a smaller group of farmers to feed all of us. All right, new random number is 5. Invention 5. The electric dynamo, invented by Michael Faraday in 1831. The electric dynamo is basically the first electric generator. It's the first thing that can produce a serious enough current of electricity to actually do work with. If you don't know how electricity is made, not all the time, but generally, the most common way that we make electricity, take a magnet, kind of like a shape like a long bar, and then have a coil of wire, like electrical wire, wrapped around the magnet. If you then either spin the magnet or spin the coil of wire, that will cause an electric current to pass through the wire. I want you to look around whatever room you're in right now. I'm willing to bet there's a whole lot of stuff that's being powered by electricity. And without this electric dynamo, none of that happens. Not a single solitary bit, mostly. Just about all the electricity we use is produced by generators that run, honestly, very, very similarly to how this really early electric dynamo is. So, kind of important, y'all. All right, next up. Ooh, we got 5 again, which means I will do one more and do 6. The electric telegraph. So, before the telephone, before the radio, before any other way to communicate at the speed of light, you have the electric telegraph. If you've ever seen one of these in movies, you'll see people tap it going beep, 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 beep. All they could do was send short little signals that were either short or long. And by using patterns of long or short signals, you could spell out a message. Obviously, not as good as a telephone, not even as good as texting on your phone, but to a world that had never had anything before that, this was a complete game changer. You could literally send information at the speed of light, whereas before, the fastest you could get information was, well, the fastest that you could hand somebody a letter and let them gallop someplace on horseback. This is the grandfather of all of the telecommunications technology that we take for granted today, like, you know, the one that's allowing you to listen to me right now. Okay, new random number 13. The spinning jenny. At first invented by James Hargreaves in 1764, then improved by Richard Arkwright in 1767. Okay, another clothing one. It used to be that in order to spin fibers into thread or into like yarn, you had to use a spinning wheel like this. And you could only spin one thread, you could only create one little strand of cloth at a time. That was a lot of work. And it basically meant most people only owned just a couple of pairs of clothes because each shirt, each set of pants represented so much work. With the invention of this and other things like it, just to explain what this does, instead of a spinning wheel that creates merely one spool of thread at a time, look at that picture. You could be using a spinning jenny and creating lots and lots of thread all at the same time by just doing the exact same amount of work that it used to take to do one at a time. Things like this are the reason that, shoot, I'm looking down at the shirt I'm wearing right now. I doubt if this shirt cost even $5 to make. The clothing is so cheap now, and getting jobs in the clothing industry was a huge thing that drove the Industrial Revolution. See what's next. Ooh, number 1, anesthesia. Originally Horace Wells in 1844, but truly popularized by William T.G. Morton in 1846. Very simply, anesthesia is special medicine that either knocks you out or makes you not feel pain while they're doing a medical procedure on you. Before the days of anesthesia, surgery was a horror. You literally, were lying there while people were cutting your body open. And I mean, they were trying to help you, but the best you could expect is maybe they would have given you a little bit of alcohol to drink. And so not only was it just a horror to go through surgery, but at the same time, lots of surgery that people knew how to do and that would have saved your life They couldn't even try to do it because there's no way the patient would have been able to stay still during very delicate surgery. Once anesthesia was invented, first of all, people stopped being as scared to go to the doctor when they had a serious problem. And second, the doctor was able to do like very careful, very delicate surgeries, and the patient would be, basically unconscious the whole time. They wouldn't be causing pain and they wouldn't be jerking around. So, hard to put a number on the number of lives this must have saved, and maybe even harder to put a number on the amount of pain it must have spared people. Okay, we got a 13. We've done that, so we go up and do 14. The steam engine. It's hard to make a big enough deal about this. Originally Thomas Newcomen in 1712, greatly improved by James Watt in 1769. This was a game changer. Before this, if people wanted work to happen, work basically needed to be done by wind power, like windmills or the sails on a boat, water power, like with water wheels on a river, or muscle power, either human muscles or animal muscles. This changed things. The steam engine allows you to change heat into work. Very simply, imagine having a whole bunch of water. You put a fire underneath it and you cause the water to boil. Well, when water boils, it becomes steam, and that steam will build up in pressure and try to escape. A steam engine changes that pressure from the steam into work, whether it's pushing a train down the train tracks or powering machines in a factory so that the work wasn't being done by human muscles, but by just, well, fire. Today, most of the work that people do isn't done by muscles or by wind or by water, or if it is, it's done at one step removed by electricity. The steam engine is what broke us out of that wind, water, muscle trifecta, and it completely changed our world. Okay, random. 14. Hey, we just did that. 15. The steam locomotive. Okay, so the steam locomotive by Richard Trevithick in 1802. This is basically what happens when you have a steam engine and you hook it up to wheels. For the first time, you had a vehicle that could move itself. If you were like me and you loved choo choo trains back when you were a kid, well, this is the original right here. But this was the first time humans had invented like a device that could move itself without being pushed or pulled by an outside force. Instead, it had its own engine that made it go. And everything else we use today, be it the cars on the road or even the planes in the air, owes a little something to this original steam locomotive. Random 12. Yeah, they just want me to go in order. 16. Vulcanized rubber. Rubber, if you didn't know it, rubber is made from the sap of the rubber tree. Now, today we also have artificial rubber, which is ultimately made out of oil, but we'll go back. Rubber is made from the sap from the rubber tree. The thing is, though, despite the fact that rubber has been known for a very long time, rubber by itself isn't strong enough to, say, hold a car up off the road like the tires in the car that your family probably has parked somewhere near you. But if you vulcanize rubber, which means you heat treat the rubber while adding a chemical, often sulfur, it basically makes the rubber both very, very strong and prevents it from degrading or kind of rotting, which absolutely changes everything. Without inflatable rubber tires, whether it's real rubber or synthetic rubber, we wouldn't be able to have cars out on the road. And this little bitty invention by Charles Goodyear in 1839, that's what we have to thank for that. All right, final stretch. 1. So I do number 2. Still in order. The battery. by Alessandro Volta in 1799. So people knew about electricity even before that electric dynamo I showed you. And it was Alessandro Volta who figured out a way to store a charge in place until you were ready to use it. I'm willing to bet somewhere within arm's reach of you, perhaps your phone, you have some device that's powered by batteries. If it were not for this invention, everything that requires batteries, well, would basically only work if you could plug it into the wall. So, no cell phones, no wireless controllers for your PlayStation, no wireless remotes for the TV, none of that. The modern cars, even the ones that aren't electric powered, even have batteries in them in order to make their gas engines go. So, yeah, we kind of use batteries a lot. 7. Oh, I get to skip some. Interchangeable Parts by Eli Whitney in 1798 and also other people. Okay, interchangeable parts are the way that most things we use. Like this is a picture of a gun because guns were the very first things to really be built with interchangeable parts. It used to be things like a gun would be built one piece at a time. And the person making it would like make a screw, kind of make sure it fits, then make one of the nuts or bolts to go with the screw and make sure it fits. And you'd make every piece by hand one at a time, which meant if one of the pieces broke, you had to go to an expert and have them make a brand new piece from scratch. Because if you tried to take the piece from your buddy's gun, it would be just a little different because every gun had been made starting from scratch. But these people realized, you know what? If you start at the beginning and you're very careful and you make sure you make the same piece the same way every single time, in the long run, that saves you so much work. And it means if something breaks, you don't have to reconstruct that part from scratch. You probably have a great big pile of parts that are exactly the same, and you just need to trade it out. Literally every piece of machinery that you have in your house or apartment right now, I guarantee you, is made from interchangeable parts. Unless you and your parents made it by hand in your backyard, your TV, your dishwasher, your car, every piece of machinery you have is made with interchangeable parts. Okay, 14. So if I go to 14 and count up, I get to 3. So, canning was invented by Nicolas Appert in 1809, and it was a serious game changer. Before this, it had been forever since anybody had come up with a new method of keeping food good. And it's a method we still use today. Go to the grocery store and see how much stuff they're trying to sell you that's in cans. The canning is amazingly good at keeping food good. There was even a riverboat that sunk into the Mississippi River in the 1800s. We found the wreckage more than 100 years later, and in the wreckage, they had canned food from back then. When they opened it up, more than 100 years later, after having been at the bottom of the Mississippi River, the food in the can was still good. You could still eat it and not get sick. That was amazing. All right, let's see. We're almost done here. 12. So I guess I count up to 4. The cotton gin. Okay, we're sort of back to clothing here, but in this case, not so much making clothing as making the stuff that lots of clothing is made out of. There is a very good chance that you are wearing at least one thing that is made out of cotton. Once upon a time, cotton was one of the most expensive substances to make cloth out of. If you don't know, cotton is something that grows on a plant, but if you just pick cotton from the fields, the thing is, it's like this fluffy white stuff, but it's mixed in with these little bitty annoying pokey seeds. Eli Whitney invented this device, which made it really, really easy to separate the seeds from the fluffy stuff that, you wanted to make clothes out of. Cotton was an amazing substance for making clothes. And before the cotton gin, it was something where only the richest of the rich people could really afford. Ooh, a fancy cotton cloth. And these days, it's something that's easily within the economic reach of pretty much everybody. It really started powering, a lot of that, the industrial revolution based on clothes stuff. We've talked about the devices that let you put the clothes together, but in a way, none of those things would have been effective without this to create the material that so many of the clothes were made out of. Okay, which one will it be? Nine. It will be 11. That was the much less likely one. Photographs. The first one invented by Nicephore Niepce in 1827. The bigger and more famous inventor, Louis Daguerre, in 1839. Okay, I think you guys know what photographs are. This is when you can take a picture of something and preserve it. I'm going to throw something out here. The very first photo ever taken, ever, is sitting not very far away from you guys right now. If we weren't in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, I would be telling you, get your parents to go take you down, because at the UT campus in a building called the Harry Ransom Center, completely free, you don't need to pay anything to see it. We all live right near the oldest photograph in existence. It's just a picture of a street outside this guy's apartment. Now, the original 1827 way of making photographs wasn't super practical because it took like 8 hours to expose a picture. The Daguerre method from 1839, well, it was way shorter than that. But I know it's easy just to think about, oh, just taking pictures. This also includes movies. You can't have movies without the ability to take pictures. If you don't know, a movie is basically just a whole bunch of still images flashed on the screen really, really fast. So, this right here, this is the fundamental building block of every image you've ever seen captured, whether it's a selfie on your cell phone, a video on YouTube, or an epic movie in the theater from back when it was still safe to go into theaters. It all starts with this. Okay, just for the record, I'll get a number, and yeah, we're going to do 8. Machine Tools by Henry Maudsley, 1800. Okay, machine tools are it's a way to, well, I mean, I'm about to use both the word machine and tool. It's a way to make the machine cut out a part or cut out a piece of something exactly the same way every time. We already talked about interchangeable parts and how much of a huge advantage it can be to have every single part made to the exact same size every time. If you have a human being do it, shoot, if you try to draw the same picture over and over and over, even if you're great at drawing, there's probably going to be some little variations. But you guys know, if you have a machine do something over and over and over, it's going to be basically the exact same way every time. And that's what machine tools let us do. I said earlier that every part of every machine you have in your house was almost certainly an interchangeable part. I'll say now, every part of every machine you have in your house was made by a machine, not by hand. And machine tools is the beginning of all of that happening. When machines began making the things we use rather than an actual human being's hands. Okay. I know this was a long one today, y'all. I promise you will not have to suffer through another video this long, at least not for a good long while. Here is a weird pause right in the middle of the video so I can tell you the secret word is industrial with a capital I because of, the Industrial Revolution. What you need to do now is go to the Google form. This will be very much like our last debate. I'm going to ask you to vote on up to 8 of these inventions, which ones you think are the most important. Then I'm going to ask you to pick just one and write an argument in its favor. I will be reading off some of the arguments so that we can have a virtual asynchronous class debate. I'll thank you one last time for sitting through all of this, and I will, of course, close by saying stay safe and stay healthy.